วัสดีค่ะเพื่อนๆจ๋าเอาหนักให้แม่ยา
The Jewish community too, still reeling from the fire bombing of a Melbourne synagogue last Friday, declared a likely terrorist act.
When is enough enough? Starts at sprays, burning cars, burning synagogues. This is a national crisis.
Condemnation offered from other religious leaders too.
Oh, you want to do video, huh?
No, I feel free นะ
Oh, do it later, huh?
No, I can do now สวัสดีจ้าพี่น้องเดี๋ยวซอยไปแย่งยกโทรทัศน์ก่อนจ้ะ
In this incident,
Start splitting hairs this morning, and I fronted a press conference where I said, "Oh, look, I'm not sure whether this was anti-Semitic." When one Freddie can see that it was, I think that we send the exact opposite message that this press conference is meant to convey.
this incident has triggered the New South Wales Police to step up their response against what they say is scaling up their resources put in place after the October 7 attacks.
There will be increased patrols, increased engagement with the community, very high visible police presence.
The Prime Minister acting quickly today, committing $8.5 million to the Sydney Jewish Museum, a fitting institution, he says, to call for an end to hate.
We need an end to anti-Semitism. It is evil. It diminishes us as a nation.
Sending a message of commitment to the community and calls for unwavering unity. Brianne Hamer, SBS World News.
And the federal government's special envoy to combat anti-Semitism, Gillian Segal, is calling for a tougher response to crack down on anti-Semitism. This includes tighter restrictions on protests against the war in Gaza. She's been speaking with our reporter, Claudia Farhart. What have you been hearing from the Australian Jewish community about anti-Semitism over the past few months?
Well, I think they, as well as I, have been calling out that it is and has been at an unacceptable level. It's obviously a pattern of increasing violence, which is very unsettling and very upsetting. High-profile attacks which intimidate and scare. What we experience every single week in the cities of Sydney and Melbourne are these demonstrations and marches and having insults hurled at Jews and at Israel and anyone who supports Israel.
You mentioned the marches. A lot of the Australians who are participating in those week-on-week are people who are concerned about how the war is playing out. How can they strike the balance between expressing their genuine concerns over that war and the civilian casualties and also being respectful of the community?
Well, I think that there is a way to find a balance. And I think that universities, for example, which were an epicenter of hatred and normalisation of anti-Semitism during the year, have realised that you can strike a balance. You can allow protest, but it has to be at a certain place. The cities should not be utilised for that. There should be places designated away from where the Jewish community might venture. And that is not to in any way attack the right of people to express their views. But at some point, every single week becomes intimidatory.
Do you believe that the protest movement in a whole is doing that, or do you understand the concerns?
Oh, I certainly understand people's concerns and also their right to protest, but I think it's morphed into something that's much more sinister.
Earlier this week in the US, the Simon Wiesenthal Centre issued a warning for Jewish people travelling to Australia, saying it's not convinced they will be safe here. Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't know that it is at that stage, but I think it's symbolic and symptomatic of how the situation in Australia is being seen by the rest of the world, and a warning to all those in authority and in leadership roles that something has to be done. There's a perception which needs to be changed, but it's a perception that it will be okay and they'll get away with it. And law enforcement in particular has to clamp down and say these kinds of incidents, big and small, need to stop. Because if we don't stop it, it will get worse. And then it will be a terrible situation if someone is really very seriously injured.
Your role was created alongside another role, the special envoy to combat Islamophobia. Have you been working directly with Abdullah?
Well, I've met with him a couple of times, but we're not working comes from different sources and different people. So although the government has often linked them, I think we have to understand their different causes and therefore different ways to tackle them.
And you can find an extended version of that interview with Special Envoy to Combat Anti-Semitism, Gillian Siegel, on the SBS YouTube channel. Coming up, Benjamin Netanyahu begins giving evidence in his long-running corruption trial. Also, the government's pre-election pitch to voters when it comes to subsidised childcare. And voices from inside Syria, residents reveal the horrors of civil war after years of being silenced.
Tonight at 7:35, every answer comes fully assembled in IKEA. How do they really do it? Then Pan Am, the rise and fall of an aviation icon, and later the old man.
A Pan Am jumbo jet with 258 people on board has crashed.
Scotland and England were strewn with wreckage.
I had dreams of planes cracking in half and blowing up.
This noise, creep and flash.
Said, yeah, well, they think it's a bomb.
30 years later, this international crime story that still is unfolding.
This is complicated.
After the Sky Fell on Lockerbie, Sunday 7:30 on SBS and on demand.
Bill just bought a Bluetooth speaker from Amazon. And now, Christmas on the farm is much more Christmassy.
Introducing the Subaru Forester 2.5i Luxury Edition with leather accented seats. Available in limited numbers, so hurry into your Subaru retailer today. It's you and Subaru for a world discovered. See you out there.
Make the switch to Red Energy on your next move and unpack up to 15,000 bonus Qantas points. Call 131 806.
What's your kid's way to discover? Like a precision engineer? Like a demolition expert? Or a treasure hunter? What's your kid's way? Kid surprise. 1,000 ways to love it.
At Harvey Norman this Christmas, thunders are nice for kids' bedrooms, like the Petal single bed, only $449. Exclusive range, X-Rocker electric single bed with RGB LED lighting effects, only $799. Much more at Harvey Norman now.
Refined, stylish, and unapologetically desirable. Style like you never expected. The new hybrid electric Camry. Toyota.
It's interesting to put the fate of someone in the hands of people that don't really know what they're doing.
Even for aerospace.
They can all come at me.
I will die with yours. Is the accused guilty or not guilty?
We're looking forward to this. So many beautiful people with amazing yarns to tell. I've never seen anything quite like this.
Welcome to my country.
Explore a vibrant collection of First Nations programs,
Telling our stories louder than ever.
showcasing traditional culture and inner knowledge from Australia and around the world.
His story deserves to be remembered.
MITV Moi New Life, stream free on SBS On Demand.
As Israeli troops continue operations in Syria, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has begun giving evidence in his long-awaited corruption trial. He told judges he'd done nothing wrong and is being hounded because of politics. He said he was capable of attending court and running a war at the same time.
Benjamin Netanyahu is the first sitting Israeli Prime Minister to be charged with a crime. His lawyers have repeatedly tried to postpone his trial, but if he's concerned, he isn't showing it. The public gallery packed with his supporters, while critics protested outside. Among them, relatives of the hostages still being held in Gaza.
The fact that he abandoned our hostages 100%.
The Prime Minister was indicted in 2019 in relation to gifts from friends and allegedly seeking regulatory favours for media tycoons in exchange for better coverage. Today he told the court he had done nothing wrong, claiming left-wing press had hounded him for his right-wing security policies. Had I wanted good coverage, all I would have had to have done would be to signal toward a two-state solution. Had I moved 2 steps to the left, I would have been hailed. Mr. Netanyahu was required to give testimony for $6 a day, 3 days a week, for months, juggling the courtroom and the war room. I have been waiting for 8 years for this moment to tell the truth, he told judges, but I'm also Prime Minister. I'm leading the country through a 7-month war, and I think the two can be done in parallel. It's better to say they shouldn't have to. Tensions between the pro and anti-Netanyahu camps boiling over and are likely to rise further when the hard questions are asked.
The most interesting part will be in 1 month from now, when it will be a cross-examination that Netanyahu needs to give an answer to a very tough question.
The verdict isn't expected until 2026 at the earliest, and even then, an appeal is still possible. Ben Lewis, SBS World News.
Moscow has declared the war in Ukraine won't end until its objectives are met, either on the battlefield or through negotiation. The Russian stance has cast doubt on US President-elect Donald Trump's pledge to end the conflict quickly when he takes power next month.
A touch of Christmas cheer comforts weary Ukrainian spirits. Festive traditions offering a moment's escape from the third straight wartime winter. But any possible ceasefire deal appears to be skating on thin ice. Moscow making clear its unwillingness to compromise.
Специальная военная операция закончится тогда, когда будут достигнуты все цели, которые были поставлены президентом и верховным главнокомандующим.
A Russian military operation that's exacting a heavy human toll. In Ukraine's southeast, 3 people were killed and 16 injured when a missile struck a private clinic in Zaporizhia. Responders trying desperately to extract survivors from the debris. Scholars who escaped harm watched on, waiting for news of trapped loved ones. Among Moscow's demands for an end to the conflict in Ukraine, abandoning any ambition to join the NATO security alliance, as well as fully withdraw from 4 Ukrainian regions Russia claims as its own. Terms the Ukrainian president has rejected as tantamount to surrender, as he met Germany's conservative opposition leader and possible next chancellor.
Ви побачите, Путін не хоче закінчення цієї війни. Раз. Тому його треба примусити. Примусити можна тільки, якщо Україна сильна. Україна сильна перед будь-якою дипломатією, це сильна на полі бою.
community, the ABC Local Radio. Donate now at abc.net.au/gives. It's been called the Impossible House.
The goal is to go completely off grid.
Disconnect from every utility that the neighbourhood offers you.
The finale of Grand Designs Australia, tomorrow at 8 on ABC TV and ABC iView. Someday, see what life's like for our mustering marvels.
Gossip's going great. She really laps up her celebrity status. Jen has no idea that he has puppies.
Muster Dogs, where are they now? Sunday on ABC and ABC iView.
Apparently, if you're single at this age, it's just weirdos and hookups.
I just think you need to meet someone.
Again?
You can't control who you fall in love with. No one can.
Your wife has just died. Why did you give women everything?
You've never been in one, okay? So you don't actually know what you're talking about.
Being scared is a silly reason not to do something.
Love Me, Sunday 8:40 on ABC TV and ABC iView. It's the party of the year and everyone's invited. Celebrate New Year's Eve with ABC. Non-stop live music from some of our favourite artists and 2 fireworks spectaculars lighting up the night sky. All the joy and excitement brought to you live from Sydney Harbour. Join the countdown with Party People Charlie, Zan and Conchetta. For New Year's Eve on ABC TV and ABC iView.
Tonight, condemnation from leaders after locals in Sydney's east wake up to anti-Israel graffiti and burnt out cars. Hello, I'm Nikari Thorpe. This is ABC News. The transfer of power continues in Syria as life returns to a new normal for locals. A pitch to parents, the PM unveils changes to childcare subsidies and $1 million for new centres. And the sounds of Australia, Tina Arena's power ballad among 10 special sounds added to the National Archives. The Prime Minister has condemned it as completely abhorrent to who we are as Australians. He was referring to the latest anti-Israel graffiti attack in Sydney's eastern suburbs. The Premier today described it as a hate crime designed to strike fear in the Jewish community.
Another overnight vandalism attack in the heart of Sydney's eastern suburbs. It's prompted a swift response from all levels of government.
A violent act of destruction, clearly anti-Semitic, designed to strike fear into the community that lives in this part of Sydney.
What happened last night is disgusting, and there's no place for hate of this nature in Sydney or anywhere in Australia.
The Prime Minister today visited the Sydney Jewish Museum, where he pledged $8.5 million to refurbish it.
For a wake to this latest attack, just a matter of a couple of kilometres from here in Wallara, that is completely abhorrent to who we are as Australians.
Anti-Israel graffiti was sprayed across several properties on the street sometime before 1 a.m. Police believe those responsible also torched a stolen car which was left at the scene. They're looking for 2 teenagers who disguised their faces. The attack came less than 3 weeks after anti-Israel slogans were scrawled on several vehicles and one was set alight in the same suburb.
This is the latest incident, the latest attack in a sustained campaign of intimidation, harassment and terror against the Jewish community.
Since the October 7 attacks in Israel and the war in Gaza, police here have launched Operation Shelter to combat rising community tensions. From today, more officers will be deployed.
There will be increased patrols, increased engagement with the community, a very high visible police presence.
Melbourne's Jewish community is also shaken by the latest attack, just days after one of their own synagogues was targeted. The arson attack has been declared a likely terrorist incident.
These sorts of crimes are intended to rip our society apart. They are intended to drive a wedge between Jewish Australians and our fellow Australians. Don't let them do it.
There is absolutely no justification for anyone in our community, for any reason, seeking to intimidate anyone in the Jewish community based on their opinions, based on their beliefs.
The Premier today visited the Wallara crime scene as authorities moved to reassure an uneasy community. Leah Harris, ABC News, Sydney.
Syria is slowly emerging from the shadows of more than 5 decades under a dictatorship. One of the rebel leaders who helped topple the Assad regime is now the caretaker prime minister. But fighting persists in the country's north as Israel continues to heavily bombard Syrian targets.
It's something of a new normal. Back to business across Damascus, even if the former Syrian leader still looms large on the nation's banknotes.
We woke up to a new dawn. It is a happy day for all. All the people that I've seen today were happy, whether employees or clients.
In a famous ice cream shop in Damascus, fighters from the rebel group Hayat Tahrir al-Shams, or HTS, savoured the sweet taste of victory.
It is perfect. I haven't tasted anything like it.
From the streets to the cabinet room, members of the ousted Syrian government prepare to gradually transfer power to a new transitional cabinet headed by caretaker Prime Minister Mohammed al-Bashir.
I heard positive statements from the HTS and the other armed groups that they intend to continue to reassure civilians that they want to be inclusive, especially with minorities.
Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is using the right words, but we will of course judge them not by those words, but by their actions.
The fighting continues. The Israeli military carried out more than 300 heavy airstrikes across Syria. The idea of releasing this video claiming to show the destruction of the toppled government's leftover weapons stockpiles.
Some of Syria's neighbours have been railing against Israel's behaviour since the toppling of President Bashar al-Assad. The concern is not only the ongoing airstrikes, but what countries such as Egypt and Qatar are describing as an opportunistic land grab, with the idea of deploying troops and tanks inside Syrian territory along the border with the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Israel insists it's done this simply for its own safety.
We have no intention of interfering in Syria's internal affairs, but we have every intention to do what is necessary to ensure our security.
And in the north of the country, Turkey's intelligence services have fired on US-backed Kurdish forces. Trucks loaded with missiles were destroyed, highlighting the competing alliances since the fall of the Assad regime. Back in Damascus, it's not all celebrations. Using their mobile phones for light, relatives began the grim task of searching for loved ones in this morgue. Victims were brought here after being found in the notorious Sednaya prison. Some detainees were discovered clinging on to life, but many never made it out. Matthew Doran, ABC News.
Labor has made an early election pitch to families, promising to build or expand 160 early learning centres in the regions and outer suburbs. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has also committed to providing 3 days a week of subsidised childcare for all, scrapping the controversial activity test.
The election campaign hasn't begun, but it's never too early to hold a baby. The election pitch, though, is well underway.
This is the single biggest investment by an Australian government ever in new childcare services.
Labor pledging $1 billion fund to build or expand
สวัสดีจ้าพี่น้องจ้า
that will bring the opportunity of early
ไป
education to regions and
ไป
suburbs.
ส่งทีวี
The timeline to build more centres on the sites of existing schools and include maternal and child health facilities. The promises didn't stop there.
Under a re-elected Labor government,